Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, featuring the sharpest minds in marketing, inspirational case histories, and weekly insights you can apply to your business. Find out why top CMOs rank this podcast among their favorites. Now, here's your host, Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Hello, Renegade Thinkers. One advantage of being a seasoned, I'm putting that in quotes, seasoned marketing professional, I've got 4 decades in this game, is that you can say with confidence, this too shall pass. And yes, at some point, we'll be brainstorming together at our offices, traveling for business, convening at conferences, cheering in stadiums, and celebrating in restaurants. But that some point may not be in 2020. And there's some question about how far this will go into 2021. So until then, we marketers need to adapt to our current reality and better yet, help lead our organizations through these unprecedented and perilous times. We need to face and conquer the challenges of motivating a remote and anxious workforce. We need to find substantive ways to help our current customers survive, if not thrive, the economic downturn. And we need to figure out how to attract prospective customers without seeming like an insensitive pariah. It's a tall order, but I know you all are up for it. And so is my guest today, Peter Finter, who has spent the last 4 years as CMO at Couchbase, a fast-growing cloud-based database provider. Peter has a long track record of success at tech companies like Gigamon, Juniper Networks, and Nortel. Peter is also a native of the UK, which gives him a competitive advantage on this podcast because his voice just sounds smarter than mine. So, Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Drew. It's a pleasure to be with you and all your listeners today.
So for those who are listening, the funniest part of this for me is Peter, who is a native of the UK, has a backdrop of a baseball stadium, and moi, who is not a native of the UK, has a backdrop of Star Trek Enterprise. So you'll have to tune in and look for that video, our snippet, which we hope to propose. Anyway, Peter, just for the folks, where are you hunkered down right now? I know you're not at a stadium.
I'm dreaming of being at a stadium again, Drew. I am right now hunkered down in my home office, although I will confess that I have also been working from my RV parked in the parking lot occasionally during this period. So we're all making do. We're all making do.
Yes. In fact, one of my recent guests actually recorded a podcast from his RV because that was the only quiet place he could find. So I totally get that. And so how has the quarantine sort of affected you personally and your routine and your family, and how's that worked out?
Well, I guess everyone has been trying to figure out a new lifestyle. And if you didn't plan ahead for it, and let's face it, who did, then you've had to make it up on the fly. And I think that's been a familiar experience for me and my colleagues. For me personally, my kids are adults, and so they're out of the home. So it's my wife and I in an apartment designed for me to be at work and for my wife to be at home. That doesn't work out so great. Since we're now both at home, now you understand why the RV in the parking lot. But I think the weirdest thing about it is that this sense of kind of like we're in a space and time where we have no real sense of how it will end. We're in this almost suspended disbelief moment. And I think for all of us, it's like, what is normality? What routines do we continue with? How do we create new routines to replace the ones we lost? And for those of us that want to stay fit and healthy, that's been frustrating. For those of us that are sociable, and I bet many of the people on your podcast are extremely sociable folks, you know what? It's been challenging to do every part of your life by Zoom. And here we are, Drew. And yes,
I know.
Well.
They're calling it Zoom burnout. It's like, oh, can we just talk on the phone, please? It's funny that I was having a conversation, and I think about with a group of CMOs, and I said, 4 out of 5 days, my routine is saving me. me. It's grounded. I do the exercises in the morning with my dog. I take him out. I work pretty much a full day. Then I take an hour-long walk to Central Park with my wife and our dog. And it's really actually amazing because we never did that before. Now, and I've shifted work hours a little bit, but the fifth day, somehow or other, the overall anxiety of the world that we live in, I have to admit, gets me. And that's that. And so, the routine can only get you so far. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about.
That's why we have each other, Drew. That's why we have each other.
That's why we have. And, it's funny because I have definitely found that a lot of conversations are very therapeutic, and these group Zooms can be that way. Anyway. Let's talk about your, I mentioned in the upfront sort of the three key challenges for CMOs: engaging their employee base, engaging customers, and, acquiring new ones, or at least getting some in the pipeline for B2B folks. Let's start with employees and your team. How big is your team?
So for the company as a whole, we're just about 450 employees as a company, which means you can almost get everyone on a Zoom. Nearly get all those Brady Bunch panels up there. And we've done a bunch of those. In fact, we've been very regularly in front of all our employees and giving them lots of different ways to engage, which we could chat more about. So there's about 450 of us in the company, and in the marketing team, we're about 25 at this point, just to give you some reference.
Yeah. And how are you, are there some things that you've done with your team, specifically those 25, to adjust and adapt to the work from home world?
We have, actually, and one of the things that we put in place is what we call our COVID stand-ups. So we're actually meeting frequently, and as a member of the executive team, we've actually been doing daily stand-ups on COVID so that we're on top of all the aspects relating to our business. And we've kind of created 3 work streams that we as a team have been focused on, one being around employees, the second being around our customers and partners, and the third being around our operational infrastructure and what we're doing to adapt and adjust to ensure that we're supporting all of those other stakeholders appropriately during this COVID period and beyond. So we're already planning for that return, but the great return, which we're all anticipating. Well, we're actually already planning for that, which is a positive thing to focus on, and it's also an indicator that we've actually got on top of the issues that were initially so challenging to us, and we have now put ourselves in a place where we're able to focus on taking care of those customers, winning new ones, as well as supporting our employees through, in some personal challenging situations. Of course, being a global enterprise with a significant footprint in Europe, we've had quite a lot of exposure to COVID-related issues from not just employees directly, but their nearest and dearest, as well as offices that are shared spaces and so forth and so on. So it's a variety of approaches, but essentially it's been about creating more different ways to engage, from Friday fun days to virtual coffee hours to cocktail hours. We've just created lots of different ways for our teams to reconvene on a regular basis, and it's helped.
So I've talked a lot, even on the show, we've talked a lot about happy hour ideas and cocktails and sharing shows and so forth. I'm curious about what fun days are.
Well, fun days for us can take many different forms, but they largely comprise of employees demonstrating hidden talents to one another. And I am super impressed at the creativity that folks have. One of my very favorites is one of our French sales leaders who decided to show us how to cook and created a 3-minute cooking demonstration of how to create his favorite French dish. I think everyone else on the call was just in awe at the quality of the video production. And then we were wondering why he wasn't actually selling anything during that time.
Well, there's that.
But
yeah.
It's been all kinds of stuff.
Well, maybe he does a lot of entertaining at home. That's one of the ways to think about it.
Let's go with that. Let's do
that.
Yeah.
That's super fun. Très bien. And I bet everybody was salivating. That's a very good one. Any other sort of a hidden talent? I mean, here we are. Couchbase got talent. I mean,
oh my gosh, it's been amazing what people will come out with from the woodwork. We've done everything from air guitar displays from families with young kids, who apparently the biggest challenge is to stop them actually singing along with the songs, all the way through to songwriters we didn't know we had playing the ukulele. One of our UX designers demonstrated that he knew a lot more than just UX design. And it's been fun to see how people have responded. It's bringing out the best. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that has definitely happened is the wall between sort of work and business and home, they don't exist anymore. And there's really some very good things about it. I mean, everybody sort of sees the kids in the background and, they're interrupting the calls. And I've had a couple times where parents have made points because of the Star Trek background. But I think it also creates some management challenges. And I'm wondering, particularly for folks who are, now suddenly challenged with teaching at home, and it's really hard. What adjustments have you all been able to make, if any, to help those folks who suddenly, let's face it, having kids at home is another job?
You're absolutely right, and it's really affected people differently depending on their life stage, and so we see that manifesting. One of my team members is frequently on a call with her 6-month-old baby on the hip, and what's so fantastic to see is how the baby is both interested in what's going on the screen and then falls asleep, obviously during the boring parts of the meeting, and then wakes up again and still is there throughout a 30-minute Zoom meeting, which I find absolutely amazing. But I think the key to it is flexibility and actually giving people grace in the midst of all of this, recognizing that they still want to do a good job. They still want to get their job done. And, fortunately in a company like ours, we seem to be busier than ever. But we're recognizing, that creates significant challenges. And so people want to do the right thing, but it's how you help them do that and still feel part of the team. And so some of that is actually about encouraging people to take time off. I know it sounds a bit strange when everyone's all at home all the time, but we have an unlimited discretionary time off policy, which means under normal circumstances, you can take as much time off as you want. In fact, what's interesting is that people rarely take off as much time as some people think they will.
I know, yeah.
But the fact of the matter is...
yeah, that's a problematic policy. I really want to talk about that because my understanding is the cliche on everybody can take as much is that nobody takes any time. And that's worse in my mind than saying, you know what, it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks and it's use it or lose it. Get going.
You're
Get
raising a great point. And so one of the jobs that managers have to do is to encourage their folks to take the time off they should take off. And so something that I've been encouraging my team to do is to book time off. And they say initially, well, what am I going to do? I'm at home already. What else? I can't go anywhere. I can't have a vacation. I said, well, look, don't you think a day without scheduled meetings would be a good experience for you and your family? And invariably they try it and they're like, oh yeah, can I have another day off?
Right.
I'm like, yes, you can, because one of our core principles at Couchbase is serve your family as you define it. That's one of our 6 core values in the company. And so we are very orientated around employee situations, what they're dealing with on the home front, and in knowing that when their home front is in good shape, they are in much better shape from a work point of view as well. And of course, that requires a level of trust. And as you rightly say, when people are working remotely, you have to reestablish that confidence that the communication is still there, that people are actually focused and working. And what we're finding is that these Zoom meetings, these video conferences are a really good way to help people stay connected and feel that they're not as remote as they otherwise would feel.
That's great. And I completely agree that it's like, hello, staycation, right? I think that's it. And we're going to get to that point because if it looks like in New York, we may be here for mid-May to the end of May. It's really hard to tell right now in this same sort of scenario, and suggesting some staycations out there is good. It also was interesting to me, of course, that this was values driven, so it made some of these decisions easier. I want to take a quick break and then we'll come back and explore those values. Hey, it's Drew, and I wanted to have a quick conversation about turning lemons into lemonade. Here are the lemons: skiing, Park City, January 11th, 3rd day, last run, going fast. Light was bad, a lot of snow on the ground, 50 yards from the bottom, I crashed and burned. Literally tumbling down the mountain, did a 3-point landing, with my head and 2 thumbs. Broke the right thumb, sprained the left thumb, finished up surgery 5 days later, and now I have a little extra time on my hands. What do? I finish a special report that I've been dying to finish for a long time, which is a way for me to get to my next book. It's a preview of the book. You can find it on renegade.com. On the very beginning of the homepage at the top, there's a banner that says B2B Special Report. I would love it if you took a look at this and let me know what you thought. I think you're going to find a lot of value in it. Okay, we're back. So you mentioned serve your family. Can you list the 6 values that you mentioned, or a couple of them? I know I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
no, that's fine. I think, we spend, as a CMO, one of my responsibilities is to help the company think about how to express our brand, our promise of value to our stakeholders, both external and internal. One of my funnest jobs, frankly, is new hire onboarding. I absolutely love it. It's an opportunity to engage people in the mission, what we're about, what we're trying to accomplish as a company, and how we do it. And I spent some time last year with our Chief People Officer, Chris Galley, and our CEO, Matt Kane, specifically on our core value. Many companies give lip service to values, or they become a poster on the wall, the cliche. And we recognize that. We all knew values can be a throwaway, but for us, we wanted it to have, the word I was using with the team was high utility. Like, when do values matter? It's when you have to make a hard decision. That's when values matter. What do you turn to help you in that, as you rightly say, Drew? So we thought through what we think are important for ourselves and our team, and what we would want to espouse. What type of company do we want to be part of? And actually, the very first value might be a bit surprising. It's be a good human always. So before we worry about what are we trying to accomplish as a company, and who are our customers and what we do with them, we really wanted to say it doesn't cost you anything to be a good human. And part of being a good human is to do with how we think about each other. And so one of the things that we wanted to call out was this idea of assume positive intent, act with positive intent. And we call that out because, as you know, Drew, one of the issues that we have inside organizations is this kind of jockeying, this kind of, I'm not sure what you're really going after. What's that hidden agenda? Where's this really coming from? And you know what? In this world of remote working and Zoom conferencing, this issue of intent is more important than ever because our communication is more limited. So that's an interesting one. That's the first one. So I mentioned already, serve your family as defined by you, but actually we sandwich one in between those two, which is act with uncompromised integrity. So this idea of uncompromised integrity, we feel needs to go alongside of acting as a good human, because we want to ensure that we are consistent in the way that we behave towards each other. And we recognize there's a trade-off. So as I mentioned already, serving your family might involve you taking time off work. Well, we do have an unlimited discretionary time off policy, but if we really meant unlimited, if people decided they were going to take advantage of that, that would actually cause a problem for their colleagues, who would then have to carry more of the weight. So we wanted to balance this idea of uncompromised integrity as with this idea of being human and serving your family. But if we think about why people come to work, it's all of those things above, I'm sure, but actually many of our engineers are motivated by something else, which is solving hard problems. So our fourth value is solving hard problems driven by customer outcomes. So we are very focused on this idea that actually it matters what we do, we care about what we do, and we do things that are harder because they are more rewarding. And that means we are willing to work harder to get those outcomes, to drive a better outcome. And the outcome itself is driven by the people that we're here to serve, which is our customers primarily. So the fifth value is to do with teaming, and play to win together is our fifth value. Play to win together. This idea that says, actually, it does matter. We are in a competitive environment. We do want to be successful, but we're not going to do that at the expense of one another. There's another side to that, which is never lose alone, right? We don't want people to be heroes and then fall on their face in front of a customer because they got too far ahead of the rest of the team. We actually want them to be part of it. So that's just a flavor of the values.
I can see how all of those,
today,
and I'm curious, in this segment as we sort of migrate from employees to customers. And obviously this is a hard time for some. I think you mentioned on our pre-call that you have customers in the travel and hospitality area. And I'm curious right now,
Yes, we do.
Given your set of values and their challenges, how that informed actions that you have taken during this crisis?
Really great question, Drew. And, it is exactly to your point, at times like these when values are put to the test. And so let me focus in on that one I mentioned, which was solving hard problems driven by customer outcomes. Some of our customers are facing unprecedented challenges. As you rightly say, when you're in the travel and hospitality industry right now, your revenue has dropped precipitously. And you're in a situation where you're potentially furloughing workers and you're looking, very, very hard at every aspect of your business. Well, one of the things that we can do to help our customers is in terms of giving them the ability to leverage our product without having to increase their expense in the short term. So one of the things we've been able to do, for example, as a software-based company, is to give some of our customers the ability to expand the use of the product without paying for it right now. So we want to help them through this transitional period the best way that we can. In some cases, it's about helping them accelerate projects that they were already working on because those projects were designed to reduce the total cost to their business. If they're moving from a legacy database environment into the cloud or into a cloud-based NoSQL database such as ours, what that helps them do is to be able to scale at lower cost, and in some cases offload expensive mainframes and legacy database usage by using it more efficiently. So depending on the customer, we've tried to think about what it is that they most need. We talk to them about where we can help them the most, and we try to come up with a solution which will be most useful to them during this transition period. And we do believe it's a transition. We do think there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Clearly, that time will come. It's not clear how long it will take until we get there, but we want to take the pressure off our customers from feeling like this is another part of the pain that they're trying to suffer. We can be there for them through it and be creative in the way that we stand with them. And we believe that that will build stronger relationships. And in the end, that's what all good business is really predicated on, those stronger relationships.
Well, what I thought was so interesting about that, and by the way, I don't have a kid at home, but I do have a dog at home, and he has decided to join the show at this very second.
Welcome.
Yeah, this is Louis, and he sort of insists this is his witching hour, and it's at this point where he's about an hour from a big walk, and he just has to be in my lap or in my wife's lap, and so there's just no fighting it. So anyway, but I find him, my blood pressure goes down when he's around for the most part. Anyway,
Wonderful.
What I think is interesting, it's almost like you have to look at this as, you have your own CARES Act, your own PPP, where, which this are loans the government as Small Business Association is offering to small businesses. But in some ways, your clients that are really suffering really need a break, and they're going to try to get it anywhere they can. One of the things that you also mentioned that I thought was interesting is that while you're looking at their, and maybe you mentioned this, but I don't think so, while you're looking at their cost situation, there's also challenges that they may be able to, that you could help them deal with, that during this sort of slow period, they might not have, and I think you referenced an example of that in our pre-call too, sort of helping them think about, projects that would be good to get done. This is a rainy day for them.
Yes, you're raising a very interesting point, which is what we've been surprised about in some cases is even companies that are in the sectors where we're experiencing significant challenges right now, they are still being very creative and innovative about how to use the resources that they already have, meaning their people, and the time that they have, some of the opportunities that they have during this period of time to accelerate this digital transformation that they're undertaking in different parts of their business. And one of the things that I think we chatted about last time was that for some of them, actually getting access to the physical environment where they need to make those changes happen is normally difficult, and they have to schedule months or years ahead. Well, suddenly, those assets are no longer being used in the same way that they were previously, which means that they have this unique opportunity, a bit like a maintenance window suddenly opened up in the sky.
Right.
And now they've got the ability to do all kinds of upgrades and expansions and implementations that they would not otherwise be doing. And that was unexpected. But we pride ourselves on our flexibility and agility. That's what we offer to our customers, and we want to be agile and flexible for them as well. So we're trying to find ways to help them exploit their opportunities, whatever they may be, without increasing the burden on them in the short term, right? Obviously, they want to true that up in due course, but in the short term, it's about finding ways to work together in this moment, believing that that is for the good of everyone in the longer term.
I mean, one thing is for certain, if you didn't have digital transformation in your plan of operation, this is the moment where every company's going, what were we thinking? Why aren't we in the cloud 100%? They've got to, and that's certainly got to favor you all in where you are relative to, say, your larger, more, less digitally transformed competitors.
I think that's a fair statement, Drew. And obviously, we are very conscious of the fact that the transitions that our customers are going through are very large scale in nature. When we talk about legacy databases, we mean the technologies that have been in place for decades, which have been very robust and very reliable and have been the backbone of businesses, for years, but they are limited by their ability to scale cost effectively and the agility that they need to be able to turn on a dime to address changing situations, new sources of data, unstructured data, leveraging those for the benefit of their customers through new applications, web, mobile, IoT, being able to do that quickly. That's why they've been constrained by this legacy. But it's very hard to leave something that you've been so reliant upon for so long. And I think what this is really about is what's the level of kind of confidence, unless you have to. And sometimes we do have to be compelled to make changes in our lives. It's no different for organizations and corporations. And so I think what we're seeing is a compelling event just arrived, and it became so transparently obvious who could handle it and who couldn't. And now what we're seeing is people are saying, oh my goodness, I have left it too long. I've got to do it. I've got to do it right now. How can you help? And so this idea of transitioning in a seamless and non-disruptive way is, I think, going to give companies the edge. When you come along and say, let me throw out everything you had and here's something brand new, it's extremely hard to adopt those technologies. But when you give them a path to say, well, bring with you the expertise that you've gained over these years and now apply that in this new environment, we think that's going to make it successful. The parallel that comes to mind is actually Tesla. When Tesla built a new type of car, they didn't change the steering wheel out for a joystick, right? Because they knew we're drivers. We need it to feel like a car. We need to get in it and it's a car. It doesn't matter that everything under the covers went away and was replaced by something completely different. We didn't need to know that or worry about it. We just needed it to feel like a car. In some ways, it's the model for how to help people adopt new technology. Make it familiar enough that they'll bring it in, but give them the underpinnings, the new architecture, if you will, to allow them to do things they could never do before. And that's the approach we've tried to take for our customers. And I think everyone who's trying to leverage the cloud to give people more flexibility, more agility, is well positioned at this time to help their customers through this transition.
Amazing. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. I'm back. I'm not going to talk about skiing, but I do want to talk about the special report that you will find on renegade.com. There is so much meat in this, in the 12 steps to a more effective B2B brand strategy in 2020, that there are probably some folks out there that think I'm crazy to put that out there in front of a firewall. But I'm really hoping to get feedback from some of you all on the report, perhaps what's missing, because again, the book is going to be developed against this outline, but fleshing it out. There might be some guests that could help fill in some of the areas. You may disagree with some of the things. I'm really interested in your opinion on this piece, and your engagement with it will really help make the book that much stronger. So you'll find it on renegade.com. Very top, there's a banner that says 12 Steps to a More Effective B2B Brand Strategy. Take a look. And we're back. This work at home thing is, occasionally we get interrupted by crazy things. And of course, my dog was having a personal emergency, which we had to take care of. Anyway, so I'm wondering as we wrap up this section on customers, is there anything that sort of surprised you that you did for your customers, or anything that happened in this period where you went, oh my God, I didn't see that coming, or boy, that worked better than we expected, or just a lesson learned from the customer side of things?
That's a really super good question, and I dare say more will sort of manifest over the next few weeks and months as we see the impact. But one of the things that I've noticed is just how much people want to be involved in solving the bigger problems, and the creativity and innovation that people are willing to put into it is tremendous. And so, as it happens, we are in the data and analytics space, and that is really helping in this area of like, how do we deal with new healthcare information? What do we understand by the COVID pieces? And just seeing the ways that people are really creatively trying to solve supply chain problems over in Switzerland. These things are popping up onto my radar every single day, and these are not intentional. We didn't go to our customers and say, hey, have you thought about using our technology to do something? No, they are leveraging it on their own, and they're sharing with us kind of some of the results. And that's super exciting, because you realize actually, the success of any organization is whether what you do actually is something that other people value. And, as CMOs, our job is always trying to help point people to the value that we create. It's extremely rewarding when you see people discovering that value for themselves and then trying to tell you what value you create for them. That's the virtuous cycle that I think we all aspire to as CMOs. And it's really been amazing to see some of that starting to happen during this time. And I don't know whether you would agree with this, Drew, but it sometimes seems to me that it takes, the really challenging situations to reveal some of the amazing things that would otherwise have gone unnoticed, or maybe never even have happened. I am a silver lining guy.
Yes,
I'm certainly seeing a lot of silver linings.
No, and it's true. And I think that, I've been having a number of CMO conversations, and we start with the silver linings, and there are a lot. But there is one silver lining that people are struggling with, and that's filling the pipeline. That's not a silver lining. That's a challenge. The CMOs that I'm talking to in the B2B world are saying, hey, our pipeline was really full going through March, but as those folks convert or don't, and that, the process is not speeding up unless it was an emergency type solution, they're not sure where the next set of quality leads will come from, particularly the ones that were dependent on A, events, or B, face-to-face follow-up. Or even, some kind of ABM program that involved high-impact direct mail that went to the office, or, other things like that. Suddenly, the toolkit has reduced, and there's only so many webinars that the prospects can take, and we've all gotten our COVID-19 letters, we've all gotten our business continuity stuff in place, and all of that. That work has been done. So I'm curious, from your perspective, and now one thing that's helping are for those brands that have a freemium or free product. Because the risk of trial is so small. And that's, and I've been talking a lot about that. You have that advantage, right? You have a freemium product.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yes, we're an open source database company. So our community edition is widely available at no cost and for perpetual use. So the good news is people can get started, and they can get started now, even if it's in the education phase. That's great, right? We want people to be learning about new technologies, and we've got actually more opportunities to educate now than we had previously, because people frankly have more time now that they're not commuting to and from work. Right. They are having more time, and it seems like they want to consume more educational content to smarten themselves up. And I think part of that is just because we all want to be on our game when a job market is in transition, right? We want to know that we have skills that are highly valued, that we want to be ready for the worst case scenario and get ahead of it. I think that's just a personal point of view. It's not something our companies are asking us to do. But I think it is interesting that it's opening up that new door. Now, that being said, I totally resonate with the prospecting challenge that you've articulated there, Drew. I think it's an absolute obvious statement that when you basically lose one of the most effective tools in the toolbox to be able to generate net new quality leads, and let's face it, anyone who shows up at a physical event is by definition, in most cases, a quality lead. It's hard to get people to give their time to events. So it was a great filter to say, is it really worth pursuing? If we met with them and we had the conversation, they're probably the best kind of prospect we could have. And that suddenly went away overnight. And so we all are finding ourselves in that situation of like, how do we reproduce that experience, right, without the ability to have the physical event? And we're experimenting. I'm sure everyone on this call is experimenting like crazy to figure out what is the kind of the package that works. Do you suddenly become, a Netflix for your users where you have channels of content with seasons, with episodes? Do you convert your annual conference into something that's much more akin to launching a new season, and then you allow them to binge watch all the content you've pre-prepared, as an example? Do we try a different approach in terms of how we leverage our educational assets to generate more interest and more leads? So I think all of us are going through that transitional planning activity right now. But what's at the heart of it all for me, Drew, is do you really understand your target customer? To understand down to the persona level, what are the challenges that they are now facing? And it may be different from what it was just a month or 6 weeks ago. What are the things that they are now seeking to deal with? What problems are they now being expected to solve? And where is your relevance in that? Because ultimately pushing a product onto somebody whose world has been turned upside down is going to be not just ineffective, I think it will actually be offensive. It will be seen to be, the totally out of touch organization that none of us want to represent.
The tone deaf brand.
So how do you create that? Yeah. And so what is the relevance? Relevance in some respects, and I've talked to a lot of other CMOs now about this same thing. I think we're all in agreement. It's not about sort of trying to join that line from COVID-19 to your product, right? That's a mistake. That's not where people are going to respond. What people are going to respond to is evidence that you are understanding and empathetic to the situation that they're now in, whether that is the remote working situation, which obviously, benefits some organizations, mentioning no names, Zoom, Slack, others, who get that benefit directly. But for most people, that's probably not where their products are primarily focused. But what they are recognizing is they're still trying to solve the same business problems that they had in the past. Let's call it innovation. Let's call it digital transformation. But now they're having to do that in a very different way. So how can you reproduce for them the approach that they would have taken, or give them a smarter, faster way to get to the answer in their new remote situation? I think the more we can think like the very people that we want to engage, the better. So one of the actions we've taken is actually to flip our model a little bit. And we've gone internal and we've asked our own developers to tell us how developers like them are experiencing this transition, because developers are key influencers to the purchase of our product. So we wanted to walk in the shoes of the developers, and we've given them free rein. In fact, to an extent that my marketing team are extremely anxious about, we've given them access to the underlying code for our website and said, go rewrite the website for a developer-centric experience based on where you are right now and what you are thinking about right now. It's actually it's an unprecedented step for us, so we're taking a bit of a risk here. But we are really trying to align with our target audiences better than ever before, Drew. And I think that is the advice I would recommend to your listeners today, which is to say, now is the time to really dig deep on your understanding of the personas that are the key influencers and decision makers for your product, and how are they responding to the change in their situation.
And I wonder, so here's a proposition that we've seen seem to work, which is, let's just say for a moment that no deals are going to close in the next 2 months, because so many companies have the CFO, the CEO, they're thinking about furloughs, they're thinking about long-term impact, they're trying to figure out what fourth quarter revenue is. It's very difficult. So they're thinking about that. If these 2 months no deals are going to be done, conversations can happen though. Education can happen, learning can happen, helpfulness can happen. And so rather than think of this as just the way it was 3 months ago. We got to get leads. It's top of the funnel. We're going to move them in. What we're going to think about is, and in somewhat taking where you are, what can we do to help anybody
exactly
that might have an influence in this world? And it was interesting in this one group of CMOs, this woman mentioned that they just started putting incredible, helpful content up on their website that they thought was just amazingly relevant. And it was, as she described it, there wasn't even 1/100th of a sale pitch in it anywhere. I mean, you couldn't find it. And what was remarkable is she said, this was the most effective content they ever had. The less hard they sold, the more they actually sold. And I think if there was ever a moment to think about what we used to call marketing as service, where can you do something that is of value, of meaningful value? In your case, you talked about helping customers, defray costs or work on development that they might not have done. But what can we do for our customers? And the same thing for prospects that they'll remember in this moment if they're not. And does that resonate with you, that maybe there might not be deals, but there's relationships that can be built?
I do, very strongly. And, it is interesting. I think people are more sort of sensitive to motivation with their vendors and suppliers probably now than ever, right? Because everyone is sensitized to this issue that times are hard. And so people are sort of, trying to get an angle, trying to get a piece of business, to secure themselves. So there's a risk of sort of every man for himself. I think in that context, prospects are even more sensitive than ever as to the approach that their vendors or prospective vendors are taking. And I know, you and me and everyone else on this call gets an incredible amount of inbound communication from people who think they have a product or service that's going to help us. And I notice the difference between the people that are actually offering something of value and the people that are just being annoying and trying to wedge their way in the door regardless. And so I think we all have that filter. And so I think the test for all of us is, are we actually able to show up in a way that says, here's something that is going to give you some value without expecting anything in the short term in return? People understand the transaction, the balance of value, but if you can defer the expectation of return on that investment in a way that they appreciate, and it could be as deferral of payments, or it could be free use for a period, or it could be something that actually doesn't cost you a lot, but they might value highly. And education is a great example of that. We've made all our training for free, as an example, during this period, as a way of saying, look, we care about you and what you're doing. We understand you aren't going to be able to pay for this, but we want to make an investment together so that when you come out the other side of it, you're in a better position to move forwards. And we have hopefully helped you, use your time well. And I think that, people are responding well to that. There is something about that. Now, as with anything, it's all well and good. If everyone does the same thing, we're back to square one. It's kind of, okay, well, there's only so many hours in every day. But you asked a great question, which is, so what are you doing that is memorable? I think what makes things memorable for people is when you demonstrate that you've thought more deeply about their situation than the other guy. When you've done something which they didn't expect you to do. They might have an expectation right now that says, of course you're going to give me a break, something. Right? But if you can do something that they didn't expect, that's certainly a way to stick in their memories. And that may be different for everyone. I think this is back to, we used to talk about ABM as the future. Well, I'm very much a believer that it's actually PBM, it's persona-based marketing, or it's not even persona, it's personal. It's personal. Marketing is personal. And so it's extremely hard for us to customize everything we do. That's why we segment things. That's why we cluster things. That's why we think about personas rather than people. But if you think about it, what makes things matter to you is the level of personal connection that you have within the other individual. And I think that's a good challenge for us, as we think about how we should respond. What can we be doing that demonstrates that we're actually treating people as people through this process?
Wait, what? There are people at the other end? No, we need leads. What are you talking about? No, I love it. And it's funny. I could circle those back and wrap the conversation up really well, just looking at your values, the organizational values, being a good human always. You could say be a good brand always. Act with positive intent as a brand, act with uncompromising integrity as a brand, serve your family, right, as a brand. All of those things really could inform certainly a very positive approach to marketing. So Peter, I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. One thing I have noticed, and I apologize to the listeners, is they're not working out as much and they're not commuting. So they prefer shorter shows. So we've gone a little bit over time, but you had a lot of great things to say. So I so appreciate you spending time with our listeners today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. And to all of you, I hope you are good humans and are in good health. And until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.